Power is never taken, it is given to the one who dares to do less. And the moment you stop chasing, the world starts chasing you. Nature abhors a vacuum. These words from Aristotle remind us of something profound. Emptiness is never left empty for long. Wherever there is a gap, something rushes in to fill it. This is not just a law of physics. It is a law of human behavior, of power, of relationships. People are drawn to fill what is left empty. Scarcity creates value. Think about this carefully. We chase what we cannot easily have. We desire what is rare. If gold were lying on every street corner, it would lose its shine. If the sun never set, we would stop noticing its beauty. Scarcity sharpens our focus. It makes us pay attention, work harder, and value what we get. This law is at work in every part of life. When you pull back your attention, people suddenly lean forward. When you stop explaining yourself, they hang on to your words. When you stop giving away your time so freely, others start to compete for it. The less you offer, the more valuable what you do offer becomes. Think of a relationship where one person is always available, always calling, always saying yes. Over time, the other person begins to take them for granted. Their presence no longer feels special because it is guaranteed. But remove that presence, even slightly. Answer a little slower. Say no once in a while. Choose your silence carefully, and suddenly their mind is consumed by you. The void you leave begins to work harder than your words ever could. This is why the most powerful leaders, lovers and thinkers do not exhaust themselves trying to be everywhere, doing everything. They understand that space itself has weight. They create distance so that others must cross it. They create silence so that others must break it. The emptiness they leave behind becomes magnetic. You see this in art. The blank space around a painting makes the image stand out. You see it in music. The pause between notes makes the melody feel alive. You see it in negotiation. The person who can stay quiet longest often wins. People cannot resist filling what you leave empty. They cannot tolerate a void, and so they move toward you to erase it. This is why you must stop giving everything up front. Stop answering every question. Stop over-explaining your emotions. Stop being so available that you teach others your presence is cheap. Instead, let them wonder. Let them ask. Let them work for what they want from you. The more they work, the more they value it. Scarcity is not cruelty. It is clarity. It reminds others that you are not infinite, that your time, attention, and love have weight. And when people feel that weight, they treat it with respect. When you give less, you often receive more, because what you give becomes rare, and rare things are treasured. Withholding attention, emotion, or validation often increases your power, because it forces others to confront the weight of their own desire. People are addicted to being seen, heard, and affirmed. When you give them constant attention, they grow numb to it. They treat it as background noise, something guaranteed, something that costs them nothing. But the moment you pull back, the moment you stop feeding them with constant reassurance, a strange thing happens. They start chasing what they once ignored. This is not manipulation. This is human nature. What is freely available is rarely respected. What must be earned is always treasured. Consider how a child behaves when they are given unlimited toys, snacks, and praise. They stop appreciating any of it. They expect it. But if you take those things away and offer them only when deserved, suddenly their eyes light up. They begin to value even the smallest gesture. Adults are no different. We are still wired to crave the things that feel scarce. Your attention is one of the most valuable currencies you have. When you spend it recklessly, you drain its value. When you offer it carefully, selectively, it becomes precious in the eyes of others. The same is true for emotion. People often think power comes from expressing every feeling loudly and openly, but power often lies in restraint. Anger, when used sparingly, carries more weight than constant outbursts. Affection, when given rarely, feels more intense and meaningful. Imagine someone who compliments everyone all the time. Their words soon mean very little. But if a person who rarely speaks kindly, looks you in the eye and praises you, you remember it for weeks. The impact is not just in the words themselves, but in their rarity. Machiavelli understood this. In The Prince, he advised rulers to control how much they reveal, to avoid being too familiar, to let others work for their approval. Too much accessibility breeds contempt. People begin to see you as ordinary, even disposable. But when you hold back, when you stay just out of reach, you create a subtle tension. People start wondering what you are thinking, how you are feeling, whether they have earned your attention. That wondering turns into effort. They start doing more to impress you, to win you back, to close the gap that you created. Withholding validation is particularly powerful. Most people spend their lives seeking approval, from parents, from peers, from partners, from society. The person who can withhold that approval, who does not rush to give it away, holds tremendous influence. Think of a teacher who praises only when excellence is achieved. The students work harder. Think of a leader who nods in approval only when the team truly performs. Their praise becomes something people chase. The same principle applies in personal relationships. If you are always affirming, always reassuring, always saying yes, you are right, you give the other person no reason to grow. But when you hold back and let them sit with uncertainty, they are forced to self-reflect, to improve, to meet the standard you set. This is why silence is such a powerful tool. Most people are uncomfortable with it. They rush to fill it with words, explanations, nervous laughter. But when you stay silent, when you withhold a reaction, it forces the other person to reveal themselves. They show their true intentions. They work harder to gain a response. They become more honest than they might have been otherwise. Your silence becomes a mirror in which they see themselves more clearly. There is also a psychological pull in the act of withholding. Humans have a bias toward completing unfinished patterns. When someone withholds attention or emotion, it creates an unfinished pattern in our mind. We want closure. We want to solve the puzzle. We lean in. We invest more energy. We think about it more. This is why someone ignoring you can often consume more of your mind than someone showering you with attention. The lack of response is not neutral. It is magnetic. However, this requires discipline. Withholding is not about punishment or cruelty. It is about creating space for others to act. It is about refusing to devalue yourself by oversharing, overgiving, or over-validating. It is about understanding that power is often quiet, patient, and controlled. The person who cannot stop talking, cannot stop texting, cannot stop seeking approval, is always at the mercy of the one who can wait, who can remain still, who can let the void do the work. There is an elegance in this approach. It is not loud, but it is felt. It draws others toward you without force. People become curious, then invested, then dependent on your response. This is why some of the most charismatic people you meet are not the ones talking the most, but the ones who make you work for their smile, their nod, their attention. You feel as though you must earn them, and that feeling of earning something makes it priceless. If you want true influence, do not flood the world with your energy. Do not hand out your validation like free samples. Choose carefully. Offer less than you feel tempted to. Let others rise to meet you. When they do, reward them just enough to keep them moving forward, but never so much that they lose the hunger to try again. This balance keeps you in a position of quiet strength. Power is not just about control over others. It is about control over yourself, your impulses, your emotions, your need to constantly give and explain. When you master the art of withholding, you do not become cold or unkind. You become deliberate. You let your attention, your emotions, your validation carry weight. And in a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, the person who can remain calm, measured, and reserved becomes impossible to ignore. Most people are so busy filling every silence, every gap, every moment of uncertainty that they never allow the truth to surface. They never let others show who they really are. When you create space through silence, through patience, through restraint, you give people room to act freely. And in that freedom, their true nature comes to light. You see who will take responsibility and who will avoid it. You see who will reach for you and who will let the connection die. Space is a filter. It separates the sincere from the superficial. This principle works everywhere: in power, in relationships, in negotiation, in leadership. When you immediately rush to offer a solution, to answer a question, to rescue someone from discomfort, you prevent them from showing what they are capable of. You rob them of the chance to rise. But when you step back and allow that uncomfortable pause, you see who steps into it with strength, and who collapses under it. This is how a great teacher learns who is truly motivated, not by giving every answer, but by leaving room for the student to struggle, to think, to try. Struggle is revealing. Effort is revealing. People show you who they are when they must work for something. Think of a conversation where someone asks you a question. Instead of rushing to respond, you pause, you let the silence. In that moment, they often keep talking, revealing far more than they originally intended. They might explain themselves more, expose their motives, or clarify their thoughts, just to fill the silence. That pause draws out truth, because most people cannot stand an unanswered space. This is why interrogators, therapists, and negotiators all know the power of silence. The person who can hold the space longer almost always gains the advantage, because the other side will eventually break it. Space also creates investment. When you do not immediately offer yourself, your time, or your approval, others must decide how badly they want it. They must work, wait, or prove themselves to close the gap. And in doing so, they become more committed. Psychologists call this the effort justification principle. The more effort someone puts into obtaining something, the more they value it. If you give too freely, you deny them that process. They take you lightly because they have paid nothing to have you. But when you create distance, when you require patience, when you let them do the reaching, you make them invest. And once invested, people are far less likely to walk away. This is why some of the most magnetic personalities are those who are slightly elusive. They do not reveal everything at once. They let you wonder. They make you curious. And that curiosity becomes investment. You think about them. You analyze their words. You anticipate their next move. They have not given you much, but you have given them your attention, your mental energy, your time. You are now invested. This is not about manipulation. It is about balance. You do not give away everything so cheaply that it costs the other person nothing. You allow them to pay with curiosity, with effort, with pursuit. Space also forces honesty. When you do not rush to comfort someone, they must face their feelings. When you do not fill every gap with reassurance, they must reveal what they are really thinking. People will often expose their priorities and their values when left with nothing but their own thoughts. If someone truly cares about you, they will use the space you create to come closer, to clarify, to reconnect. If they do not, they will drift away. Either outcome gives you clarity. You learn who is truly aligned with you without needing to beg or chase. There is also a certain dignity in letting space do the work. You do not have to demand explanations or force confession. You simply step back, and in that step back, people either rise to meet you, or reveal their unwillingness to do so. Space is honest, because it cannot be faked. If someone truly values what you bring, they will not let that space remain empty. They will fill it with effort, words, or action. If they do not value it, they will do nothing. Either way, you have your answer without confrontation. This principle can even transform conflict. Most arguments become destructive because both sides rush to talk, to defend, to win. But if you step back and create space, if you allow the other person to speak fully without interruption, you often learn more about what truly drives them. And when you finally speak, your words carry more weight because they are deliberate, not reactive. Creating space here is an act of control, not just over the other person, but over yourself. You choose not to be dragged into the storm. You let them show their hand first, and only then do you respond with clarity. Creating space also protects your energy. You are no longer throwing yourself into situations, trying to manage everything and everyone. Instead, you allow others to do the revealing. You conserve your words, your emotions, your actions, for moments that truly matter, and in doing so, you increase your value in the eyes of others. They come to see you as measured, thoughtful, not desperate to be understood, but willing to be sought after. This shifts the power dynamic naturally. They lean in, you do not lean out of balance. Space is not emptiness. It is strategy. It is a tool that allows truth to emerge, commitment to deepen, and respect to grow. The world teaches us to always be doing, speaking, proving, but the wiser path is sometimes to step back and watch, to let others move first, to allow the silence to stretch until it becomes uncomfortable enough to make them act. What you will see in that space will tell you everything you need to know. Some will disappoint you, others will surprise you, but all will reveal themselves, and that revelation is priceless. True influence is built, not by chasing, but by letting the void pull others in, because influence is not about forcing, convincing, or begging people to notice you. It is about creating such gravity around yourself that they cannot help but be drawn closer. When you chase, you signal that you need them more than they need you. You flip the balance of power. The one who chases is always reacting, always reaching, always trying to prove something. But the one who waits, calmly, deliberately, silently, begins to radiate authority. The world starts to lean toward them, wondering why they are so still, why they are so certain, why they are not scrambling for attention like everyone else. This is the paradox of influence. The less you run after people, the more they want to run after you. When you stop chasing, you create space, and space turns into magnetism. This magnetism is not loud or flashy. It does not beg or demand. It simply exists, like a deep well that draws everything toward it. People sense that you are not desperate, that you are not easily shaken, that you are anchored in something beyond their approval, and that calmness becomes intoxicating. They begin to value your opinion more because you do not throw it around recklessly. They begin to seek your presence because it is rare. They begin to try harder to win your attention because they can feel that you will not give it away cheaply. Think of the most respected figures in history: philosophers, leaders, visionaries. They were not always the loudest voice. Many of them were the ones who could wait, who could let silence work in their favor, who could stand apart and let the world come to them. Socrates asked questions and let people wrestle with their own answers. Machiavelli wrote in a way that made rulers rethink their entire approach to power, but he was not chasing them down to plead for his ideas to be heard. The ideas themselves were strong enough to pull others in. Influence built on chasing is fragile. It collapses the moment you stop running. Influence built on gravity lasts because it makes people choose you, not because you force them to. This principle is just as true in personal relationships as it is in politics or business. When you chase someone, their love, their friendship, their approval,
You teach them that they are the prize. You teach them that they can decide your worth. But when you stop chasing and focus on building your own strength, your own presence, your own life, you become the prize. You create a life so full, so grounded, that others must earn the right to be part of it. This is not arrogance. It is self-respect. It is saying, I am not here to beg for a place in your world. You are welcome to step into mine, but only if you meet the standard. Letting the void pull others in also reveals who truly values you. Anyone can take something that is constantly offered. Anyone can accept a relationship, an opportunity, or a friendship that costs them nothing. But when they must reach across a gap, when they must work to close the distance, their effort proves their sincerity. If they do not move toward you, you lose nothing, because they were never truly invested. This is one of the hardest lessons to accept, but it is liberating. You realize you do not have to chase what is not meant for you. You can simply hold steady, let the void exist, and see who is willing to cross it. The void is powerful, because it creates curiosity. When you are not constantly explaining yourself, when you are not flooding the world with your presence, people start to wonder about you. They start to talk about you, speculate about you, think about you. Your absence becomes louder than someone else's presence. This is why some of the most compelling figures in life are those who are mysterious, who do not reveal everything at once, who leave room for the imagination. People become fascinated not by what they know, but by what they don't. But this approach requires discipline. It is tempting to chase, to seek quick reassurance, quick attention, quick validation. Waiting is hard, because it means sitting in the discomfort of not knowing. But that discomfort is where your power grows. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you reinforce the message that your worth does not depend on anyone else's response. You become centered, you become unshakable, and that unshakable energy is what draws others in. Even in leadership, this principle holds true. The leader who micromanages, who constantly chases their team for results, may get compliance, but not loyalty. The leader who sets a clear standard, and then steps back, allowing others to rise, inspires commitment. People feel proud to earn their approval, to win their respect. They invest more of themselves, because they had to reach for it. That is what makes the victory meaningful. The void is not emptiness, it is an invitation. It says, if you want to know me, if you want my time, if you want my presence, step forward. And those who do step forward become allies, partners, and supporters who are truly committed. This is how influence is built, not by chasing everyone, but by attracting the right ones. When you stop running after what is leaving, you make room for what is meant to come. When you stop over-explaining, you leave space for others to listen harder. When you stop begging to be chosen, you discover who chooses you freely. This is the kind of influence that cannot be faked, because it comes from within. It is steady, it is patient, it is powerful, because it is not in a hurry. In the end, the world respects those who respect themselves. By refusing to chase, by allowing the void to exist, you are sending a message. I know my value. I do not need to force it upon anyone. If you see it, come closer. If you don't, the door stays closed. This is how you create not just influence, but freedom. You are no longer at the mercy of others. You let them come if they wish, and if they don't, you remain whole. And that is the ultimate power, the ability to stand still, while everything you need finds its way to you. And so, the great lesson becomes clear. Power is not in the noise, but in the silence you are willing to hold. Influence is not built by shouting louder or running faster, but by standing still and letting the world adjust to your gravity. When you stop giving yourself away too freely, when you create space instead of filling it, when you let others come to you instead of chasing them, you shift the balance forever. The void you create is not weakness, It is strength disguised as stillness. It draws the right people, repels the wrong ones, and forces everyone to reveal their true intentions. It makes your presence valuable, your words weightier, and your decisions final. This is Machiavelli's hidden law, that offering nothing often brings you everything, that withholding can be more powerful than giving, that the one who dares to wait becomes the one everyone else must move toward. Learn to step back without fear, to hold the silence without breaking, to let the void speak for you. In that space, you will find not emptiness, but not loneliness, but clarity, and not weakness, but a power so undeniable that it no longer needs to chase, because everything it needs is already coming close.